wanted to tell the story of how BB flew away. And why I'm so attached to him, basically. When I first got him, after a few months, we bonded. He became very attached to me. Even if I didn't offer him any kind of a treat, which I usually don't. BB, come here. Come on. Come on. Come on. When I first got BB, he was used to being locked in a cage for most of the day, and he was let out and he was just put on the floor in the kitchen from what I'm told, and he would run around on the floor having to contend with the cat. And his name is Tweety. And if you saw this cat, you would understand. Anyways, after I adopted him, he would just fly over to me, and I wasn't doing anything. He would just fly over and land on my shoulder or on my head, or he would just start circling, and I put my hand out and he'd come out. And it was just, he was so starved for attention, for any kind of a connection, because nobody really liked him. So I started watching all these videos about cockatiels and people letting their birds fly. And sometimes a little bit of knowledge can be extremely dangerous. And even now, sometimes I go crazy when I see videos of people who've trained their birds, their cockatiels specifically, to fly outside. Because at least here's what happened. He would come to me every time. I would put him anywhere and I would clap or snap and I would say, BB. Well, actually, I called him Tweety at the time. Tweety, come here. Because that was his name. It hadn't evolved to BB. So I'd say, Tweety, come here. And he would always fly over to me. So I lived in a little back house and I had a courtyard area. And one morning, I sat him down on the porch. Basically, I had a screened-in porch, and I opened the door, and I put him right at the front of the door, and I just clapped my hands and said, Tweety. But right when I clapped my hands, he became afraid, and he flew straight up. And he flew straight up into the air and started kind of circling, and he got disoriented. And this happened so fast, and right in that instant, some crows came out of nowhere and started chasing him. They chased him up into this tall tree. And this is on Venice Boulevard, right in Los Angeles. And so he was up in this big tall tree, and these two crows were cornering him and inching closer. And I could see it happening, but he was 100 feet up, and there was nothing I could do. And I'm shouting, and he takes off, and he starts flying west down Venice Boulevard, just above the sidewalk and above the buildings. And then he was gone, out of sight. And I lost my mind. I ran around the block a few times, you know, shouting Tweety and crying and just hysterical. And I came back, I ran back in, and I just took a picture of a cockatiel that looks like BB, and I put it in a Word document and just said lost bird, Tweety, you know, put my phone number, and I just printed out as many as my printing cartridge had. Remember that, BB? And then I just went around to every power pole and sign for the next, until I was completely exhausted for the rest of the day, basically, until I ran out of pages. And then I went to Kinko's with the file and I printed a few 500, I think. And I drove around and I went, well, I guess I went around on my bike and then I drove around and I just put as many flyers up as I could before it got dark. I read online that you're supposed to put your bird cage on the roof. It was like a converted garage, so I could put it on the porch of roof of the porch, and I left his cage up there open, but he didn't come back. So the next morning I got up early, I took more flyers, and they say you're supposed to expand your radius by like a mile every day. So I went towards Venice, and I went the other direction towards Culver City, and I went to a bunch of different pet stores, and I went to this one pet store which is actually now closed, Allen's Aquarium, or Allen's Pet Store in Venice on Lincoln Boulevard, and I put a flyer up outside, and I asked if I could hang a paper inside, and they said, somebody came in earlier and bought some bird seed. They didn't say necessarily what kind of bird it was, but they said they found a bird and they left their number. So I got really excited, thinking that there was a chance, because when this kind of thing happens, you look online and there's like not a very good chance that the bird's going to come back. So I had mourned him all night long. I had felt like I had made the stupidest mistake. For what point? So I called this girl, and she was actually, it was just about lunchtime, and she said that she was on her way home to check on him. And BB is missing a toe. This one on this side right here, he's missing a toe. And I said, what kind of bird is it? She said it was a cockatiel, so I was really excited. And I said, well, he's missing a toe, and he's yellow. She said it was a yellow cockatiel with the orange cheeks, and so she was on her way home, and in about 10 minutes, she would get there and she would check and see if he was missing a toe, and she would call me back. So she called me back in 10 minutes, and it was BB, and she was like 2.5 miles away from where I lived, and so I rushed over there, and she told me the story. Hold on. She said that she was outside in the morning, and the day before, and some gardeners. Well, actually, she said that her landlady had seen the bird in the back of the truck and got her out and said, hey, what should we do with this? And she had an old bird cage, and she put him in this like antique bird cage, and that's what he was in overnight. When I was there and they were telling me the story, I noticed that they had a wine rack, like a little 10 thing wine rack, and so I went to the grocery store and I bought like all the best bottles of wine that I can never afford, and I sent them a message saying I'd love to give them something, and I filled up their wine rack. Just small thing, I was, at first I put a $500 reward to get him back, and then I realized birds, you can actually buy a cockatiel in some pet stores for so cheap that I didn't want someone to even think about trying to fool me, so I took that offer down. So even now, I have reoccurring dreams. Sometimes when he's actually sleeping on my forehead, but I'll have reoccurring dreams that I just like all of a sudden I realize I'm at the park and I look down and I'm carrying BB and his wings aren't clipped so he can fly, and I'm just like, what am I doing here? And I try to hold his wings down so he doesn't fly, and he's like, ah. Or sometimes I dream that like I'm in a studio that has like really high ceilings or something, and I've got BB with me, and I'm afraid he's gonna fly up into the rafters. But I know I'm so lucky that I got him back. And that was only like a few months into us knowing each other, and that's what felt so bad at the time was we had bonded so much that I felt confident that he would fly to me, but clapping my hands, he's just a little bird brain, as much as I think he's, a diabolical genius. Sometimes he just reacts like, ah, and he just flew straight up. So that's why I freak out when I see people flying their cockatiels out in the wild, because what if a car backfires? What if, it doesn't matter how well they're trained, but that's something else. So that's the story of when BB flew away, and that's also why I have reoccurring dreams about him flying away or almost flying away. We gotta wrap this thing up. I don't know anything about cockatiels really like I know about guinea pigs, but I have lived with BB for 7 years, 6.5 years. So I know BB very well. I don't necessarily know other cockatiels. So I'd love to learn more. One of the things that I'm trying to figure out the most is, does he need a bonded buddy? I'm not going to breed guinea pigs. I'm not going to breed cockatiels. But does he need a partner? How does that even work? I have contacted cockatiel rescues and cockatiel groups, and they said he needs a checkup, and I got him a checkup at the vet, and they say he's healthy, but that was like a year ago, and he's still healthy. He's been doing great. I don't want to mess up the bond we have. I don't want him to fight with a new bird. I just want him to be happy and healthy and have the best life possible. It's not like guinea pigs where they must live in groups. I know that cockatiels are flock animals, so if someone's going to tell me that they must live in a flock, then I'd love to hear that, and I'd love to see, it's kind of vague, right? So let me know. Can cockatiels live happily their whole lives by themselves? I know many people keep them that way. And I feel like he's been very happy. And I almost am afraid that he would fight another bird. But maybe not. Maybe they'd be best friends. So I'd love to hear if any of you have experiences. But I'd love to hear what you guys think.